We will get started here in just a minute or two. Stay tuned. All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. My name is Brian Osowski, and I'm the Director of Marketing for your Visitor and Convention Bureau. Thanks to everyone for being with us this morning for this second of 3 presentations that are part of our 2022 Data Webinar Series. If you recall, we kicked things off back in March with Timothy Axtell from Arrivalist. Today, we're featuring our friends from Sojern and Expedia, and then we'll wrap things up in September with the folks from Key Data and take a deep dive on our vacation rental market. Now, just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get started this morning. Today's webinar is being recorded, and both the recording and the presentation decks will be posted for your review and reference on leavecb.com within the resources section. Please feel free to use the chat or question feature to ask any questions that you may have throughout this morning's presentation. I think since we have 2 presenters, we'll hold your questions until the end, which assures that we'll have plenty of time to get through the content and to give both of our guests the opportunity to weigh in. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing our 2 presenters this morning. First up is Linda Zimmerman. Linda is an experienced sales and marketing professional with over 20 years experience working for OTAs. In her current role as Senior Business Development Manager for Expedia Group Media Solutions, Linda specializes in using Expedia's exclusive first-party data to develop and execute strategies to help her partners achieve their goals. Expedia Group Media Solutions is a global travel advertising platform connecting marketers with hundreds of millions of travelers across the Expedia Group brands. Over the last 5 years, Linda's been working in partnership with Lee County, and today she's going to share insights for the upcoming summer travel season to help you market your business and maximize sales. Then we'll hear from Stephanie Dunford. As Sales Director and DMO expert at Sojern, Steph Dunford drives strategic digital media campaigns and analytics for Florida DMOs and stakeholders around the state, most importantly, right here in Lee County. Sojern is a leading digital marketing platform specializing in reaching travelers in real time as they're searching for and booking their next trip across the broad digital landscape. Sojern ensures that your message gets in front of the right travelers at the right time to influence their decision-making to book your hotel, visit your attraction, and stay in our destination longer, thus increasing incremental visitation and economic impact. Over the 6 years that Stephanie has been with Sojern, she's driven new business development initiatives and partnered with state-level DMOs like Visit Florida, as well as cities, development districts, beaches, and more. She is excited to be here to share more about Sojern's travel data insights and trends to help you with your marketing planning and initiatives moving forward. Thanks to you both for being with us this morning. Stephanie and Linda, we certainly do appreciate it. Linda, I'll hand it off to you to get us started.
Great, thanks so much, Brian. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a Monday morning. And thank you very much also for just inviting us to attend today's webinar and share some great information about upcoming trends. I'm also very excited to be here today. So here just sharing a snapshot of some of the different topics and data that I'm going to share with you. First, we're going to go over our US travel trends. We're going to do a competitive outlook to see what kind of destinations and data we have about competing destinations for Lee County. I'm going to share some insights about Vrbo and then we'll cover some international trends, and then I just have a recap slide of all the great details that I'm going to share with you today. So first, we'll go ahead and get started with our Lee County US book and search trends. Here I'm going to provide you with information, as Brian mentioned, about our upcoming travel months for the summer season. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. This data is for all of our Expedia group brands, excluding Vrbo. I have some separate data for them. So in case you're not familiar with which brands fall under that Expedia group umbrella, that's Expedia, Hotels.com, Travelocity, Orbitz, Hotwire, and Cheap Tickets, which will be included in this first section of the data I'm going to share. So go ahead, getting started here. As I mentioned, we're going to look at summer. We actually used it through September, so looking at travel for May through September. Currently, we're seeing 33% of our accommodation searches are for vacation rentals. 27% of those searches are for hotels. When we look at our feeder markets, and I'm going to share a more expanded list on this in a moment, but our top one is from Miami for this travel season. Our shoppers are actually using mobile web and app, so 52% of those searches are coming from those devices. And our largest search window for this specific travel period is 0 to 30 days. And that's about 44% of our total searches. So here you can see our top 10 drive markets. Just wanted to give you guys information about, where are these customers coming from that are traveling to Lee County during these upcoming travel months. So here you're going to see that breakdown of the top 10. Just wanted to explain the data on this slide. So you'll see the different bars for each of the cities. At the top of each bar, that number, it represents the share that each of the cities holds for the number of searches that we have. The numbers at the bottom are indicating the year-over-year difference compared to 2021. So if we actually look at Miami, Naples, and Atlanta, those top 3 cities actually represent 63% of all of our drive market searches. And Atlanta is seeing our largest year-over-year increase with 6%. And then if we take a look at our fly destinations, here you'll see, again, using those same metrics, so the ones at the top indicating the number of how many searches they represent, and then the numbers at the bottom indicating their change year over year from last year for the same time. So if we look at the top 5 cities here, so Chicago, Boston, Minneapolis, New York, and Newark, those cities represent 63% of our overall fly market searches, and New York is actually seeing our largest increase year over year with 7%. Okay, so I mentioned this one has a bit more data, so we're going to look at bookings and searches broken down by month for the upcoming travel season, May through September. I mentioned just a few slides ago that we have 44% of our searches that are occurring in that 0 to 30 day window. So obviously in looking at this data, you'll see, May has the largest amount of search and bookings, which fits into that kind of window we're seeing. We also still have quite a bit of searches and bookings already made for the months of June. And then if we're looking at July, August, and September, those are definitely a little bit outside of our booking windows, so they don't have the largest share, although keep in mind those are outside of our booking window. So we have plenty of time to grow that business. So next I'm going to take a look at our Expedia Group US audience and who they are, what they're doing. And this is specific to Lee County. It's not, just overall US, but just specific for your destination. So when we look at our different audience types, we have 4 different profiles that we look at. So we have 2 adults, family travelers, multiple adults, and single travelers. And if we look at the information for these different types, we actually see that couples make up the majority of the travelers visiting Lee County. They have 50% of the overall share. And then our family travelers are actually the ones who have the highest room night spend. Their average room night spend is $303. If we now look at just, how are these, audiences booking, where are they staying? What we find is most of the audience is booking a standalone hotel or a flight. So you'll see 85% says standalone in that first kind of information there on the left, and 15% are booking packages. Packages for us, I know everybody defines packages differently. So a package for us is 2 or more components. So it could be a flight and a hotel, a car and a hotel, but really here for Lee County, the majority is booking either their flight or their hotel independently. Also, 67% of our travelers are actually booking 3 or 4-star properties. So we're definitely seeing a higher mix of product for this audience. And then when we take a look at our search data, what we're seeing is the majority here, there's a lot of information here. So we'll look at this kind of breaking it down. So first, starting at the top left, looking at hotel stays by day of week, we do see a larger number coming in for weekends. It's about split though, 51% and 49% for weekday. The weekday actually has grown a little bit compared to the same time for last year. We were at 48% weekdays, now we've moved up to 49, so good news there. Average length of stay is 3.2 nights. The average daily rate that we are seeing for the May through September timeframe is $245 per night. And our average ticket price, so for those folks who are flying in, their rate is $281 per ticket. And I have a note over here just on the left-hand side too. I wanted to call out, I know we're all being impacted with inflation and totally understand with increasing rates, but I just want to call out for our travelers really what the difference is year over year for them. So compared to 2021, the ADRs actually went up $36 per night for a customer. And then looking at the airline tickets, they went up $87 compared to the same time last year. So next up, I'm going to go over some information about our competing destinations. Okay, so a lot of you may think on the call that our shoppers come to the site and they probably have just one destination in mind that they're shopping. But actually what we found is 35% of them, just over a third, actually start out with 2 or more destinations in mind when they come to shop our site. And if we look at it specifically just for millennials, it's actually even higher. They actually have 42% that are looking at 2 or more destinations. So what I wanted to share with you here is just looking at using our first party search data for these US customers who are shopping for Lee County to share with you what other destinations they're actually shopping at the very same time. So the top 5 cities that we find that they're looking at when also comparing Lee County is Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Naples, and Fort Lauderdale. So all are in Florida. Some are fairly similar. Orlando kind of an outlier. I did also take a look back at 2021 just to see if there were any differences. These are actually the same exact 5 destinations that we were competing with at this very same time last year. And then if we go ahead and take a look at the traveler audience for Fort Myers, you'll see over on the right-hand side, and then just comparing 3 of those competing destinations to see what the mix is. And this is actually our top 3 competitors, in case I can't tell you exactly which ones they are, but they are in the top 3. We do have a very similar traveler mix when we look at 2 out of these 3. With about 60% of the overall audience being for 2 adults. And then kind of our second segment kind of falling into that lighter green, which is for the family traveler. And then breaking it down a little bit further even, really trying to figure out what does ADR and length of stay look like for Fort Myers compared to some of these competing destinations. And what we're finding is really Lee County offers the most competitive rates compared to its comp set. So if you look at the chart here that's on the left-hand side for average daily rate, you'll see there's comp A, B, and C. Fort Myers at the bottom that's highlighted in gold. So our average daily rate on this chart showing 153. The numbers after that are showing the percent of what that is from year over year. And then you'll see obviously the rates for each of those other destinations. So we do have the most value for them, although we are still growing rate at the same time, which is great. And then on the right-hand side, looking at what is the average length of stay, again, for Lee County compared to these other competing destinations. And we actually are doing better than two of these others, so which are a little bit more in line with our Lee County destination. So we're seeing 2.5 as average length of stay, and then that other kind of outlier comp set destination at 3.4. And then, as I mentioned, I wanted to cover, in case we have some vacation rental partners on today's call or listening to the recording of our call, we do have some specific data for Vrbo, which is our vacation rental brand, and this is also specific to our US points of sale. So when we look at our overall mix of business for Lee County and how kind of our brands break out, you'll see a pie chart here showing what that looks like. So actually Vrbo is our #1 brand for Expedia Group for Lee County. It represents 60% of our bookings, followed by Expedia at about 26%. Also, looking back to 2021, just wanting to compare, these were exactly the same top two brands that we were seeing in the same time frame last year. And then this slide looks a little bit similar to the one that we showed for our other Expedia Group brands, but a bit different information. So if we look at specifically the Vrbo bookings for May through September, we do see that 70% of those are for houses. And then another 16%, they're booking condos. Our top two kind of most popular locations within Lee County are Cape Coral and Fort Myers Beach. And this one's quite interesting, very different from our other brands. So what we're seeing with our Vrbo customers is that they do book much further out. The booking window for this point of sale is 91+ days, and that represents almost 80% of our bookings, which is up compared to 2021, where we were seeing about 70%. So definitely nice to see travelers booking much further out. And then if we take a look at this for just looking at our monthly breakdown to see kind of where the share falls here, it definitely makes sense knowing that this customer is booking much further out, that we will already have a lot of business on the books for some of our kind of closer in months. So we're looking at May, June, July, having healthy numbers. We still have quite a bit of business, starting on the books for August and September. I think we'll still continue to grow in July, even though we're getting fairly close to that 91+, but plenty of room still to grow for August and September travel. And then wanting to also give you information for Vrbo and looking again at those same Expedia Group audiences that we looked at for our other brands. So family travelers, again, multi-adult, 2-adult, and single travelers are the 4 types that we have. What we find with our Vrbo customers, a bit different. So families actually are the largest share here. They're representing 61% of overall bookings. And similar to what we saw with our other US brands is that our families are the ones who spend the most as well. For Vrbo, they're spending about $3,700 and their average length of stay is 7 nights. So definitely a much higher spend and a longer length of stay. Cool. So that concludes kind of the US data that I wanted to share with you. But I did want to cover, now that our borders are open for international, I just wanted to give you some information about some trends that we're seeing here from our international travelers specific for Lee County. So what we're finding, and this is again looking at kind of our upcoming travel months, just looking at our closer end, so looking at May through September, our top 3 countries are Canada, Germany, and the UK. And 48% of those are actually coming from Canada. So I'm so excited, and I know MMGY folks and our folks from Lee County are probably sick of me hearing, but I'm so excited to how our international travel is starting to come back because it's really important to the destination. So happy to share some numbers here. And just looking at when are each of these folks coming? When are they coming in the upcoming months? So I know this slide has quite a bit of data, so just want to talk through it. So each of the countries have a different color bar. So Germany is the dark blue. UK is our light, it's kind of like a light green. and then Canada is the light blue. So if we take a look at, for each of these months, Canada, the highest month of when we have most of these travelers coming in is in May. So you'll see there's 59% of Canadians coming in during the month of May. If we look at UK, the majority of UK is actually coming in July. So they're again, that green. May is pretty close, they're at 28%. July is just slightly higher at 30%. And then if we look at Germany, so that's that dark blue, they have the highest percentages of their bookings coming in May and August. They're both at 28%. So knowing we're still a little bit further out from the August dates, I definitely think that August will still surpass that, but it's still nice to see them coming in May as well. And then looking at just, what is it, how, what is the rates that these folks are experiencing when they're coming to the destination, how long are they staying? What we are finding is that our UK traveler actually has the highest ADR. It is $219 compared to some of the other markets. Canada's fairly close at $211, and then Germany a bit lower at $198. And then when we look at length of stay, Canadians are staying just slightly longer than our German friends. Canada is 4.3, Germany at 4.2, and UK at 3.1. And then looking at this one, just wanting to share with you, what does this search to travel window look like, and how does it differ by these different countries? So what we're seeing for Lee County is primarily most of the searches are occurring in the 0 to 21 day window. So you'll see for UK and Canada, kind of highlighted that top box at the top for the 0 to 21 days. And then if we look at Germany, it's actually very different. Their box, I've kind of highlighted at the bottom because they're very similar, I highlighted both, is 91 plus, with actually a slightly higher number coming from the 180 days prior. So international, again, just it's great to have a strategy for both, because we're still getting last minute bookings, but also getting those further out ones as well. So that's the information I have for you today on US and international. I know Stephanie is going to be coming up. She's got quite a bit more international data to share with you as well. So stay tuned for that. I just included this slide. So last week I was in Vegas, our Expedia company, we finally had our first conference back after COVID. It's been about 2.5 years. So this was something new that was just introduced to the audience attending on May 4th, and I wanted to share it with you guys here today. It's our Q1 travel trend report. I did include the link on here if you want to go and download it on your own. There's a lot of great information in here, but I did include a couple bullets just as a high level, so you can kind of get a feel for what's included in this. What we're seeing is our travel searches are definitely on the rise. We're seeing longer search windows, so we feel like traveler confidence is definitely coming back. When we look at some of the top 10s, and this is actually broken out by different regions, so US, EMEA, APAC, big cities and definitely beaches and mountains are still staying in that top 10. So great news for Lee County with our beach destinations there. Lodging performance is just continuing to rise across the board, so really great indicators there, and just growing demand overall for sustainability. This is something I know a lot of people are focusing on, so there's some additional information there for you. All right, so I covered a lot of information today. Just wanted to put together kind of a summary of just a few of the top ones that I thought were great takeaways, but of course there's a lot of other ones in here. I can't put them all on the slide. So when we're looking at our feeder markets, really Miami is our top, but Atlanta and New York also have our largest year-over-year increases and are very important to keep in mind for where those travelers are coming from. When we're looking at the US audience, 2 adults is our larger segment for most of the Expedia brands, except for Vrbo is for families. And families across all of the brands, regardless if it's Vrbo, Expedia, or Hotels.com, is really coming from that family traveler. So they're a great customer for us to have. When we're looking at our search windows, the majority are coming in 0 to 30 days prior to arrival. with the exception of some of the international ones I just mentioned, so 0 to 21 for UK and Canada, and then 91 days plus for Germany, and also Vrbo is that further booking window as well. And then I just, I know I covered some of the competing destinations and sharing some of those other cities. I know a lot of you on the call are probably always watching, what are our hotels maybe in the market doing and keeping an eye on their rates. But just be mindful that there are competing destinations and people we're competing with outside of Lee County. So understanding maybe what are some of the hotel prices look like in Fort Lauderdale or Tampa or Naples, because our shoppers are looking at those destinations when they're also considering Lee County. And then here at Expedia, think of us, we're trusted advisors, we're here to help you. I'm with the media solutions team, but we also have our lodging team who can work directly with our hotel partners. We have a lot of great data that we can share with you. It is exclusive first-party data, so we don't share it with any external sources. So feel free to reach out to us and we can help you develop a strategy. So again, thank you, Brian and team, Tam, everybody on the call, just for inviting us, letting me share some information about the upcoming travel season. And then at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stephanie with Sojern.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Let me see if I.
Yeah, looks great, Stephanie.
You can see it? Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you to the Lee County team for inviting me, and thank you to Linda at Expedia for your collaboration on this. We really appreciate your time. As Brian mentioned, I'm Seth Dunford, Sales Director for Florida and the Caribbean here at Sojern. And today I'm here to share an in-depth look at travel trends and what we're seeing from Sojern's 100+ data partners that we work with across all travel verticals, including hotel, car rental, OTA, but excluding Expedia, flights, etc. While some of the data I share may be very similar to what Linda shared from the Expedia side, Sojern's viewpoint is slightly different in that we capture data signals throughout the entire digital ecosystem from those data partners that I mentioned. Together with both Expedia and Sojern data, we can provide a more complete picture of the current state of travel and what we can anticipate for the coming months, year, and into 2023. So my goal today is to share valuable insights focused more heavily on the international competitive markets that can fuel your marketing strategies and plans moving forward. So first, I'll cover domestic travel intent to Lee County. And again, this may be complementary to some of the data that Linda already shared as well, from both our travel intent and competitive perspectives. Then I'll do a deep dive into international travel trends. And as Linda mentioned as well, Florida international travel is back, and we're really excited to share more data on that and what we're seeing both year over year and into the future. Then I want to focus more on international traveler behaviors and how you can really target and craft your strategies around those behaviors. And then lastly, we'll round out with a look at competitive destinations. So let's start with a quick Sojern overview. As I mentioned, we're slightly different from Expedia in that we're targeting travelers throughout the entire digital ecosystem based on real-time intent signals that they are showing that signal to Sojern through our data partners that they are in market to book their next vacation or to travel. They're doing searches, they're doing bookings for flights, they're doing bookings for hotel, they're looking at content related to travel. And we use that data to build custom audiences that then you can use to target the right travelers at the right time. And through this customized targeting, we ensure that you're eliminating wasted advertising dollars and encouraging your travelers to book Lee County over competitive destinations. So first, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at domestic travel intent to Lee County. And we understand that it's not only important that we show you the data, but that we can show you how to use the data throughout this. So I'll try to provide some tips and strategies on what we find within the data that can be useful for you to apply to your own strategies. Okay, so the first few slides are going to be looking at year over year, and what our goal was to really show you domestically what we're seeing in terms of travel intent. So this does not include booking data, this is just search data. When someone is actually sitting at their computer, typing in that they want to travel to Lee County or in this case, Lee County, but we'll get further into competitive destinations. So what we see are similar seasonality trend lines, but the positive note is that those trend lines are in most cases over all other years combined. So we do see that seasonality dip start in March, which is anticipated and follows the trends that we would expect in terms of seasonality. So before March, domestic flight searches to Lee County in 2022 were higher than 2021 levels, which is very positive because we know 2021 was a phenomenal year for Florida all around, including Lee County. So to see those trends continue to increase is wonderful. So that was flight searches. This is a similar view looking year to date, but on hotel searches. So what we're seeing in terms of hotel intent to Lee County. And again, that 2022 trend line continues to top all other years prior, which is wonderful. And we see that seasonality dip, which we expect. So here's a quick look at competitive markets so that you can compare our Lee County's trends. And this is flight search data, but our Lee County's trends to visit your area similar to competitive markets throughout Florida. So we have Broward County included, Hillsborough County, Lee County, Miami-Dade, Orange County, and Palm Beach County. And as you can see, I find it really positive that Lee County and Miami are basically over all other years combined continuing to increase, where that's not necessarily the case for some of your competitive markets. And I will relate that back to what Linda had mentioned too, that the competitive nature of your ADR prices and the ability to drive consumers is topping those competitive markets. So this is hotel, similar view to the flight data, but we wanted to show in hotel intent. And just as a reminder, this is intent only, this is not booking data. So this is when someone is sitting at their computer looking and searching to book their next trip. And they're either looking at Lee County or they're looking at competitive markets that are shown on this slide. And again, I found this really exciting and really positive that Lee County hotel search and intent is higher basically than all other markets and higher than every other year prior. And what this tells me in terms of takeaways is that you have the opportunity as hoteliers, as attractions, as VRBO, or as vacation rentals to really get in front of those travelers because they are searching for Lee County. All right, that was domestic, and we just wanted to provide a quick, almost like a benchmark in terms of our domestic view, but as Linda mentioned, we're gonna take even a deeper dive into the international travel trends. So starting with a similar view that you already saw, and I just wanted to clarify too that the percentages on the left-hand side, that's the percent of total volume divided by the searches for the given time period. And the reason that we're doing that is to show percentage instead of actual volume. The trend lines would look exactly the same if we were showing actual volume numbers. So that's the reason that we use that formula. And as you can see, international flight searches to Lee County in 2022 has surpassed 2021 levels and even 2019 levels. So again, we're focusing on intent. And one of the reasons that we wanted to focus on intent, the next slide will show booking data as well. But intent really tells you the total funnel that's available to you to capture the attention of those international travelers that are actively looking for flight searches to Lee County. And if you look at January through March combined, the increase is phenomenal in what we're seeing in terms of the search activity that's happening from top international markets. And as I get into slides following this, we'll break down those markets even further. So this is flight bookings. So we wanted to provide flight booking data so that you could see that not only is intent to come to Lee County very high from international markets, but actual flight bookings are happening actively to Lee County. And that number as well has surpassed 2021, which is to be expected given some of the restrictions that were in place, but also 2019 levels. So international travelers are ready, willing, and able to come back to Florida, but not only Florida, they want to come to your market. So right now is really the time to capitalize on that and push out your marketing strategies for your hotels because the flights are happening, their bookings are taking place. And we'll get further into what those lead times look like too, so you can understand how far in advance you need to get in front of those travelers that are actively booking. International hotel searches. So similar to what we showed for the domestic view, this is the international view. This is intent to book their hotel. And since this is when they're actually sitting at their computer even though the trend lines are showing lower than flight bookings, I actually find this very hopeful because, as we'll show with the lead times for hotels are much shorter still than what they are with flights. And one reason for that could be because the restrictions that are, or sorry, not the restrictions, but the ability to change or to book last minute is so much more flexible now than it used to be. And it's great that hotels have continued with those policies to allow travelers to make their decision more last minute. So even though the hotel searches may appear to be down over 2019 levels, that will increase based on the amount of flight volume that we're already seeing. All right, now let's take a step back and break down. We've shown you overall international, but let's take a step back. We want to break down what the markets actually look like and what markets we're talking about when we say international travelers. So the very hopeful sign is that the top international markets that Lee County has typically seen travelers coming from remains the same, even in our post-COVID world. So Germany, Canada, UK, Mexico remain the top international markets that travelers are searching from. And this is based on flight search data for 2022, so January through that March timeframe. And then we see some emerging markets popping up too, Italy, Switzerland, France. And what that tells us is though travelers from those markets are looking to come as well and are looking for flights to the US and have looked for flights to Lee County specifically. So if you feel like you want to expand the international targeting, those would be the markets that we would recommend starting with. And one more note on the international markets. One thing that's very hopeful about this too, to see that the top countries remain the top countries, is that there could be an aspect of a loyal fan base in terms of you had travelers pre-COVID wanting to come to Lee County from those markets and now post-COVID. So some of the travelers, there's two different buckets that they could fall into. You could be talking about new incremental travelers, which we're all looking to drive. And then you could also be talking about loyal international travelers that haven't been able to come to their favorite place in the US, but are ready, willing, and able to come back. And both need to receive messaging and be advertised to just as much so that they are influenced and reminded of the great place that they went to previously or the great place they need to come visit in the future. Okay. So here's flight searches to Lee County, a comparison by country. So we're just going to look at the top 4, including the United States, top 5 countries in terms of breaking down what that volume actually looks like. So as you can see for 2022 compared to the same time period in 2021, the top international origins have increased by more than 2 to 3 times in flight search volume. And just to reiterate what we had said, people and travelers from these countries are looking to travel now, and these would be the top markets that you would want to start with, as well as potential emerging markets. Okay, so the previous data was all year-over-year comparison. It was year-to-date, what we're seeing in terms of travel trends, how that compares to the years prior. Now we're going to take a look forward. So let's break it down into traveler behaviors and what it's looking like going into the summer and fall and even 2022 timeframe. So first, let's take a look at understanding departure months. This is more seasonality based. So, and I believe Linda showed a little bit of this too. So this is complementary and reiterates what Linda had shared in terms of July being a peak month, especially for the German market, on when travelers are coming. And this is for flight searches. So as I mentioned, lead times are shorter in terms of booking hotels. So if we know that German travelers are looking to come in July based on their flight searches, they haven't necessarily booked their hotels yet. So there's a great opportunity to still get in front of those travelers that are looking to come in July, even possibly June, August, across the board. And then it goes down by Canada, United Kingdom, Mexico, and there's a high percentage, and this is just looking at data from January to March, and there's a high percentage that booked for just this May. So they're coming to your market now, and then into June, into July, and even August. And we'll continue to see this seasonality trend change as we follow it month by month. And because booking windows are still a little bit, some are longer, we're seeing two different trends happening. Some are much longer and some are much shorter. So in terms of what this seasonality looks like, it'll continue to, peak months will continue to pop, I should say, based on the color coding and based on what we're seeing in terms of travel into June, July, and so on through December. So understanding lead times. This is the slide that I've been referring to a few times throughout our presentation thus far. And this really breaks down the lead times by country and how far out, and this is based on flight search data, how far out travelers from each country are looking to come. So as you can see, that German market, they book a little bit further out on average, that 91 or even 61 to 90 days out. And then Canada, much shorter. It's a shorter flight. They're within the continent of North America. They're closer. Same with Mexico. They're closer relatively by country. It's easier for them to get here potentially. They're not booking as far out. But then when you look at more of the European markets, you see that 61 to 91 day on average lead time in terms of flight searches. And I just wanted to let you know too that all of the data that we're showing here, if there's a different view or if you are thinking, I would like to see this by hotel searches, Sojern has this data readily available that we can pull and share with you at zero cost. So please don't hesitate to reach out after the fact if you find this information helpful, but you would like to see a slightly different view, we have that available. We can also provide it in terms of booking data. For this purpose, we focused on intent to show the wide funnel and what the potential audience size looks like. And then trip duration. So how long, once they are planning their flight, how long are they planning to stay? And what's really hopeful about the international market coming back, and I'm telling you something that you most likely already know, is that they stay longer, they spend more, they want to be in market and they want to be experiencing not only what the tourist activities are, but maybe how the locals also live. They're willing to buy groceries and do things that maybe domestically people are more willing to just have a quick weekend trip. So we're talking about travelers that are very valuable to Lee County. And as a hotelier, one thing that stands out to me is being able to highlight the affordability that you can stay in a hotel longer is going to be really beneficial for this international market, especially because we know that they, in some cases, are more likely to stay in vacation rentals. So getting the messaging out, not only about how you can stay in a hotel and be very comfortable and happy for an extended stay, but also with the international market, we're finding that messaging wise, it's very important for international travelers to know what to expect when they get here in terms of maybe having no restrictions. So for example, I'll take it to a personal level for a minute. My mother-in-law just came for 2 weeks from the UK, and she didn't know what to expect when she got here. Are there masks required? Are there not masks required? Do I have to take a COVID test? There was a lot of research that she had to do ahead of time. So providing that information up front is going to only build that brand loyalty with that international market so that they know exactly what to expect. They know they're going to be comfortable. They know they're going to be happy. They know they're not going to be restricted by certain mandates or things like that. And that your hotel is clean. All of these things are really important to continue to promote to these international travelers. Okay, now in terms of behaviors, we wanted to break it down by traveler type. So as you can see, this is the seasonality chart, but it's broken down by couples and solo versus families. And what immediately pops for us at Sojern is that families book further out. And so the strong trend comes from families where they're looking to book in July, regardless of country. So, and I shouldn't say regardless, there are a few anomalies like Canada and Mexico, but from the European markets, families book further out. And that makes sense because they have more people that they're bringing. They need to plan possibly in terms of when school is out, things like that. So that helps you craft your messaging on who you're going to target and when you're going to target them. Couples and solos are more likely to make quick trips or maybe have a shorter window in terms of more likely to come now for bookings that they've done January through March. So all of this data, just to remind you, is January through March data. And this is the departure of when those events or those search and booking events took place. So flight searches into May, some into June and July as well for couple versus solo. Okay, so this is comparing flights versus hotels in terms of booking windows. And we know that booking windows remains a hot topic, not only for Lee County, but for you as hoteliers, as attractions, as vacation rentals. So we wanted to show you what that looks like in terms of flights and hotels. So as you can see, this is international data too. So everything that we've covered thus far is international travel trends, except for those 3 slides in the beginning focusing on domestic. So internationally, what I found very interesting is that the flight lead time is that 61 to 91 day on average, especially when you're talking about European markets, slightly shorter when you're talking about Canada versus Mexico. But then when you get to hotels, it almost flip-flops. So that yellow line, which is actually less than 8 days, is when travelers are looking to book their hotels prior to departure. So we're talking 8 days prior to departure is when they're actually looking to book their hotels from international markets. That's huge. That means that there's a gap of potentially 60 to 90 days almost in terms of they've booked their flight or they're searching to book their flight versus when they're searching to book their hotel prior to departure. That's the window. That's the key time in when to reach these travelers to influence them to say, come stay with me while you're here. We will make your stay worth it. Okay, now we're going to look at competitive destinations. So domestic competitive destinations we wanted to break down, and we know that there are, as you can see the stars, that there are the ones in Florida, and along the left-hand side you can see those listed, but there are also a few other domestic competitive destinations that pop to the top. And when Sojern defines competitive destinations, it is somebody who has searched for Lee County and then 5 days before or after, so there's a 10-day window, they also searched for these destinations to book their next trip. So Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Miami, and then the out-of-state ones include Chicago, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, Dallas, and so on. So we have the top 15 competitive destinations. And one way to capture people that are looking for these competitive destinations is to do competitive conquesting, to say, I know that you're looking elsewhere and you're looking for Lee County. Let's target these people specifically with messaging to encourage them to come to Lee County instead. And Sojern can help build strategies around competitive conquesting. International competitive destinations. So if somebody is looking for Lee County, where else are they looking to go? And this is, these are mainly in the Caribbean. So as you can see, there's Mexico, Cancun, Jamaica, Bahamas, all beach destinations. So based on that algorithm that I had said, 5 days before, 5 days after, there's a 10-day travel window where travelers are looking at Lee County, and then this is where else they're looking to potentially go in their search or path to purchase. Okay, so we wanted to round out our time today with what can you do to drive travelers? These are our top takeaways from looking at our data. I met with our insights team in depth and talked about what are our key takeaways? What can we help you as a travel marketer do to use this data actively in your campaigns? So I've mentioned a few of these already, but inspiring travelers before they actually book. Reaching travelers maybe when they haven't yet booked their flight or their hotel, or maybe they've booked their flight but not their hotel yet. Finding the sweet spot in marketing them at the right time in their path to purchase is key to making sure that you can drive that booking. And then encourage international loyalty, making sure that we're staying in front of travelers that may have come pre-pandemic and want to come back. This is going to be huge for Lee County coming into the summer months and inviting those travelers back. As we could see from the flight search and hotel search intent data, there's a huge opportunity to get in front of not only loyal travelers that have been before, but potentially new travelers as well. Promote longer trips. So encourage international travelers to stay longer by sharing activities, restaurants, local grocery stores, things to do, living like a local, staying outside, even promoting messaging such as sustainability and things that will help not only encourage them to stay longer, but kind of drive into the emotional aspect. Why do we want to stay in Lee County as long as possible? And then keep safety protocols front and center. So I mentioned this a little bit, but just Updating international travelers specifically on what the policies are. If there's no policies, even better, but letting them know that come, you're welcome. We have a clean hotel, we're ready to welcome you, but no masks required, for example, or steering clear of that messaging altogether to make sure that they know that everything is open for business. And then remain always on. So international travel is back. And interestingly enough, we are seeing some trends in terms of that typical seasonality that we would see going into the summer months, right? We saw an increase in January, February, March, partly driven by spring break. Then we see a slight drop into the summer months. But the great news is that even though we're seeing a drop, levels of intent to travel are still much higher than they have been every other year prior. So regardless of seasonality, staying in front of travelers, always on, and making sure that you continue your messaging into the summer months is not only going to help travelers that are looking to book short term, but also travelers that are looking to book longer term. And it's a fluid marketing initiative, right? To make sure that you're always capturing the right people at the right time. All right, and that rounds out what Sojern has to share today. As I mentioned, Sojern is happy to provide additional information. If there are any other insights you would like to see, that would be helpful. If you have any questions, I think we'll take those now.
Stephanie, you and Linda, you amaze me. The stories that we can find within the data. And, you know, just on behalf of everyone at the VCB, we're certainly glad to be partners with both Expedia and Sojern. I encourage everybody, we still have about 7 or 8 minutes left. We haven't had any partner questions come through. So if you're out there and watching and listening, if you have a question for Stephanie or for Linda, please don't hesitate to pop that into the chat or the question box. Stephanie, I want to go back to something you said real quick. It is pretty amazing that, you know, we know that families typically book further out, but internationally, you know, looking at the lead time for the flights versus hotels, the flight lead time is 60 to 90 days plus. The hotels obviously much smaller. If I'm out there and I'm a hotel and I want to reach the travelers that have booked their flights but not made their hotel choice, what do you think the best tactic for me to employ to get that done? How do I reach those people? We know they're coming, they just don't know where they're staying yet.
Yes, exactly. So I would assume, I'm gonna let Linda speak for Expedia's portion of this too, but speaking directly for Sojern, with our travel data that we ingest from our 100+ data partners, we can actually filter out and exclude. So people that have not booked a hotel, or sorry, I want to make sure I'm saying this properly. People that have booked a hotel, include them as part of the travel audience. People that have, booked a flight to Lee County, exclude people who have booked a hotel, if that makes sense. So we're basically honing in on just that sweet spot to say, we know you've booked a flight and we know you're coming from Germany or the UK or wherever. However, we also know if you've booked a hotel, we don't want to target you because we know you've already made your decision. So let's only target people who have booked a flight but not a hotel. So we can help build those custom audiences to reach those people, knowing what their activities have been.
Super. Linda, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, on our side as well. So we really use our first party targeting where we can look at reaching those customers that are either shopping or booking specifically Fort Myers Airport or anything in the area for the hotels. I would say one other product we have, instead of just doing like display ads, which I work with specifically, we have another team within Media Solutions that works with our hotel partners on travel ads. And for the travel ads customers, when they use that product, it helps them with their ranking in the sort order. And they also have the options of different targeting than what I have on display. So if they're looking at, you know, really reaching one of those specific countries, they can do that. Or if they just want to stay US, there's a lot of flexibility, but they're all customized. So those are things that they just need to work with the team on.
Super. You know, one of the slides that you presented, talked about an always-on approach. You know, the VCB, we've taken an always-on approach as of the last few years, including internationally. Even though that we knew that flights weren't readily available, you know, we kept some international media running just to stay top of mind, and I do think that's important. Even more important now that we're really beginning to see a ramp up. The other thing in terms of marketing strategy, in addition to always on, and Stephanie, you touched on that, and it's one of my favorite things, competitive conquesting. And, you know, as a destination, we're always paying very close attention to the other destinations, what our comp set is doing in the state. And obviously there are some programs and some things available to get our brand and our partners' properties and places and activities out in front of customers searching for other areas. Talk to us quickly before we end this morning about the different products that each of you have in terms of competitive conquesting.
Linda, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I can go first. So again, like depending on how you want to market, we have a lot of different different options. So I'll first talk about what we consider our display, which is banner ads. So the ads can run on a variety of our sites, right? So I kind of showed a few slides. Depending on what type of partner you are, it really depends on your business, I would say. So if you're a hotel, or if you're specifically maybe a vacation rental management company, or even a single Verbo that you want to promote your product, on the display side, we can run ads across our different brands. With those, it's really where we apply the targeting that we're trying to reach. So if there's specific travel months that you need help, we can include those specific travel months only. If you need help sort of across the board, maybe your new property that opened, we don't have to apply that, but we can specifically look at who are those people that are shopping for Fort Myers. But we also want to look at those competing destinations, right? Like we touched on that just a minute ago, where we know there's for us specifically with our shoppers for the upcoming months, we've got a lot of competing markets in Florida that might steal that share from us. So that might be another strategy that you want to look at as even an individual hotel partner or management company, that you want your ads to show up in a Fort Lauderdale or Naples, because those people are shopping for those other destinations. It's not just competition within your own market. So it's taking it kind of a little bit step further, so that, you know, we're capturing those people who are still shopping before they make that final decision.
Super.
Yeah, and I would say from the Sojern side, slightly different option is, so Sojern is targeting people regardless of where they go on the internet, and we do that through every channel that you can use on the internet too. So display, native, video, CTV, you name it, we can be there and we can layer in our data. What we like to think about when we think about competitive conquesting at Sojern is an and or scenario. And this is what I always talk to different destinations around the state with is, do we want it to be an and or an or? And the and is they've searched for Lee County. This is the data that we showed today. They've searched for Lee County and they've searched for somewhere else. And we will combine that targeting as a layered approach into the customized audiences that we're going to reach. The or scenario that we've also done with many destinations is we call that alternative destination targeting. And what the goal is there is we don't even include people who have searched for Lee County yet. We only include people that have searched for those competitive destinations. And our goal is to, they've never considered Lee County before. We want to insert Lee County into the consideration set. But not only do we want to do that, we want to influence them to come to Lee County instead, because we're saying, okay, you've searched for Fort Lauderdale. You haven't searched for Lee County yet, but you should be, and you should come here instead, and this is why. So that's really what we have: competitive conquesting, which is our and we have alternative destination conquesting, which is our or.
Very well put. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Linda. I do see a couple of questions. I know we're right up against time. Amanda, do we have some questions that come through from our partners?
We do. The first question we have here is, do you have any indication on how early you need to let people know of specials?
I mean, I can take that first if you want, Steph. I mean, going back to the data that we shared, so looking at those search windows, it can vary very much depending on what country they're coming from or what point of sale they're even booking on. So, you know, for those international guests, really much further out. So you kind of need to think about almost that 180 days out, right? That, especially for that German audience where we looked at, that's where most of the bookings are coming from in the searches. So they have a much further out strategy. So definitely thinking about that more in advance. Still, I mean, I would highly encourage you to include that strategy for US customers as well. We always want to try to see that search to book window, grow. But we did see quite a few of those coming in with 0 to 30 days, but we also showed data showing the upcoming months. And we did have quite a few bookings and searches, even as far as out as August and September. So, I mean, you kind of have to think of it all. I mean, I would say for US, like definitely having that kind of short-term strategy is probably the most important, but still, so you don't miss opportunity, you need to have it on further out as well.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. The international market further out, the domestic market closer, depending on what those booking windows look like. And you could almost think of it in terms of seasonality. However, it's also what you're trying to drive as a hotelier. For example, if you're trying to drive short-term bookings, then use the data to let you get that promotion into people that are searching for a certain time frame. Like Linda explained, we can do that at Sojern too, that are looking for a certain time frame. Or if you want to capture people that are looking further out, you can basically tell us who you want to target and what the promotion needs to be, so we can get in front of those travelers that are actively searching for hotels. And that's the important thing to remember from both the Expedia and Sojern side. Our goal is to get in front of people that are actively searching for a hotel, and then we can get as granular as you want it to be.
Great. Well, I still see that we have most of our attendees are still on, so I think there was another question or two. Amanda, what else do you have for us?
All right, the next question is, do you have stats on retail business being affected by European travels during the high months?
That's a great question. From the Sojern side, we don't specifically have that retail data. We are working with Place IQ a little bit to try to understand foot traffic and how we see foot traffic, but we're still very much in the investigative phases. And my insights team is probably sitting there going, why did you say that yet? Because now we're gonna have to do more work. But yeah, we want to incorporate that into the future because we understand that that's valuable. Today, we don't necessarily have that because we don't work directly with a ton of retail partners to capture that data. And we want to make sure that our data is statistically relevant enough and useful enough before we share it, meaning that we have enough volume.
Yeah, similar to what Stephanie shared, we aren't specifically looking at retail data. It's definitely more on the flight, hotel, package, different brands, countries. So I don't have anything to share with that specifically to retail.
Yeah, we might find some more insights from our partnership with Arrivalist on that. We've got different POIs throughout the county highlighted, and we can identify foot traffic in terms of where people are going and how people are moving around. Not sure in terms of lead time or getting in front of the European audience, but I feel like there are some tactics that can be taken advantage of for when those travelers are actually here in destination to encourage them to visit. Amanda, anything else before we wrap this morning?
Yeah, another question here. Are there any attractions in Lee County that really stick out other than beaches?
Is this in terms of visitation? Is that what the question is referring to? I'm going to assume yes. And in terms of visitation to specific attractions, Sojern works with some directly, but in terms of volume and that stick out, we probably aren't the best to speak to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I could probably take that as a follow-up and check with our team. So we've got a lot of different groups, as I mentioned, internally here at Expedia Group. So we do have a team that specifically works with attractions and, what we call kind of our, extras or activities, everything except kind of outside of, your flight and hotels, like things to actually do in the market. So I would have to kind of get information from them and go back to you with an answer on what some of those might be. I don't want to give you any incorrect data, but it is something I can follow up on and share with the team.
Something else that data that we have available to us is through Visa. Visa Destination Insights allows us to see how and where people are spending. So for that last question in terms of retail, I had noted Arrivalist, which is primarily for domestic travelers only, on the Visa data might provide us some insights on the retail side of how people are spending when they're on vacation. Lots of data out there. Amanda, anything else?
Nope, that concludes the questions, and just a friendly reminder to everyone that we will post the video of this webinar on leavecb.com and send everyone a follow-up email with the link to that video so you can share with your team members who couldn't be with us this morning.
Super. Well, I just wanted to say a big Lee VCB thank you again to Stephanie and to Linda for being excellent presenters with us this morning. And as Amanda said, we'll have everything posted on Lee VCB. Please do mark your calendars for the final webinar in this series. Will be coming up in September with our friends from Key Data. I believe that's September 13th. Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong there. If you are a part of this webinar, you'll also get an email with the links to the recording and to the presentations again once they're posted. So thanks to everyone again for joining us this morning. Happy Monday. It's a good day in Fort Myers. Everyone have a super week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.